Is there a place that's spookier than a graveyard? 2 graveyards. Wait, no, that makes no sense. But graveyards are a guaranteed hit for your Halloween area. Now, it's gonna be super obvious, but the one thing your graveyard needs is graves. No surprises here, so let's start with different grave and tombstone designs. Here I'm using tuff, but they can obviously be built out of whatever material that you want. First, let's look at some 1 block wide designs. For those, it's pretty hard to add any kind of details, so they're gonna be quite basic. The prettiest option, sadly, cannot be obtained in vanilla survival, but if you have access to a debug stick, you can take a wall and add 2 sides like that. But here are a few survival-friendly options that you can get started with. Again, very basic. Then we have 2 block wide options. At this scale, you can go a bit taller and add more details. So here are all the designs that I could think of or that I've seen over the years. Something quite interesting with these ones over here is that we can put a big stone cover on top of the grave itself instead of just leaving exposed dirt. Finally, we have the 3 block wide designs. With these ones, we can have a lot of detail and variety, but the scale can feel pretty off, so you will need to build everything around those with that in mind. And these last 2 here are 3 blocks wide, but they could also fit within the scale of 1 block options if you see them as some kind of monuments. Now, tombstones are absolutely necessary for a cemetery, but they aren't the only things you should put there. Trees, plants, fences, and paths are all part of what makes a graveyard feel real. But before you start building anything, you need to think of the style of your graveyard. And what I mean by that is how decrepit it's gonna be. In our example here, I decided to go for something that is clearly abandoned and maybe even got cursed or something. When building ruined things, I usually start by thinking of what it was like before being broken, and then I can imagine how time could have affected it. So here the graveyard was surrounded by a large fence made out of a stone brick base holding a wooden lattice painted red. Over time the paint started losing its color and the wood started to break, while the stone crumbled and moss started growing on it. The tombstones were made out of a variety of stone types, but also started breaking down, losing their polish, their structure, and even falling apart in some places. The trees look really old, broken, and sick. They seem to have a pretty bad effect on the ground around them, like their roots are spreading some kind of toxin in the soil. That might also be why the rest of the plant looks like it's in pretty bad shape. By adding a mausoleum, you can turn your graveyard into a creepy entrance to a minigame, a shop, or even a home. And finally, a dugout grave trapped with a shrieker is a very safe bet when you want to scare your friends. For that, just hide a calibrated skulk sensor, waterlog it, calibrate it with a power of 9, and put a shrieker next to it, and every time someone closes the chest, the shrieker will scream. So that's what I have to offer for graveyards. Have fun making your own.